The Innova Destroyer is one of the best-selling discs year after year, if not the best-selling disc. So many pros utilize the Destroyer as their maximum distance driver. They carry multiple versions of different states of wear, and it's just a very popular disc in the disc golf community. Now, the problem is most players aren't professionals, and most players don't have that arm speed and snap like the pros. So most players are going to benefit from putting down that Destroyer and picking up a Wraith. So today on JustDisc, I'm going to be doing a review of the Innova Wraith and tell you why some players are doing themselves a disservice by using the Destroyer over the Wraith. Now, if you didn't know, the Innova Wraith was released in 2005, so it's a fairly old disc. It's been on the market for a long time. And if you didn't know, the Innova Wraith has always done well. It's always sold fairly well, usually at the top of the charts for top-selling discs, but it's always been overshadowed by the Innova Destroyer. What's really interesting though is that on InfiniteDisc.com website, the Wraith has started to surpass the Destroyer in sales. So what's happening right now? Are we seeing a bit of a resurgence of the Wraith? I think so, but we're just gonna have to wait and see how it looks in the long run. All right, so let's talk about this disc a little bit. For the flight rating, it has an 11 speed, a 5 glide, a -1 turn, and a 3 fade. So this distance driver is really meant to be a stable, precision, accurate type driver with good speed and good glide. The only difference between the Wraith and the Destroyer is that the Destroyer is 1 speed up. So they're almost identical with a slight difference. Now, when analyzing the profile of the Wraith, and when you compare it to the Destroyer, they're pretty much identical. There doesn't seem to be a difference to the naked eye. They both have that little bit of slight pop top for that great glide. They're both very thin because they're distance drivers, but you really can't tell much of a difference. However, when holding both discs, the Wraith has always felt more comfortable, and I really couldn't figure out why until I looked up the dimensions. And what I found was only a slight difference, but a difference nonetheless. The rim width of the Wraith is actually about 1 millimeter or 2 smaller than that of the Destroyer, which makes sense on why it feels more comfortable in my hand. So personally, with more comfort comes more confidence, comes better throws. But that may be different for someone with maybe bigger hands, but it definitely feels a little bit easier to throw when you hold it when compared to the Destroyer. So the main reason why I'm recommending for most players the Wraith over the Destroyer really has to do with that 1 less speed that I mentioned earlier. That 1 less speed, although just a slight difference, creates a multitude of benefits. Firstly, it allows for more accurate and controlled shots that can fly straighter for longer durations. And if you didn't know, the higher the speed of disc, the more power that's required, the harder it is to control. So that 1 less speed just gives you more accuracy. Secondly, it allows for more shot types out of the disc because the Wraith is so much easier to get some turn out of it. It's easier to get the disc to turn over. So things like S shots, flex shots, hyzer flip shots are all possible with the Wraith, depending obviously on skill level and power. But in general, you can just do much more with the Wraith than with the Destroyer. And thirdly, because of that easier turn, more players are going to get more distance out of the Wraith than the Destroyer because it allows them to get that full flight out of the disc, where the Destroyer, for a lot of people, they can get it flat but not for as long. They don't really get much turn, and then it fades back heavily to the left. So more distance is almost guaranteed with the Wraith, and it also has that trusty fade back like the Destroyer, a little bit less pronounced, but great to have that fade back to keep it in the fairway. Now, it's important to note that I still love using Destroyers and I still count on them. And I use the Destroyer when I need a little bit more stability out of the disc, when I don't want it leaking or turning too much to the right. So on windy days, definitely using the Destroyer. Downhill shots, when again, I don't want it to turn too much, I'm using the Destroyer. Or even when I'm using forehands, because my forehands are a little bit more powerful than my backhands. And with forehands, you need more torque resistance. So the Destroyer gives me that. And I can even get this thing to turn a bit and do max distance shots with my forehand. So it definitely has its place, but the Wraith just gives me more options for shots, and it's just nice having a disc that's easier to throw to get the intended flight. Now to conclude, your average disc golfer is going to definitely benefit from the Wraith, especially if they don't have an arm speed like the professionals. But before you go out and buy a Wraith, it's important to mention that disc weight and plastic have a big difference on the flight of the disc. So make sure you get that figured out before you purchase one. But if you're more new to disc golf, you're more of a beginner, I would stay away from these two discs for now until you get more experience. Well, that's all for today. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video. If you haven't seen some of my other disc review videos, make sure you check them out. And thanks for watching JustDisc. Thanks for getting informed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt.